I used to have a simple life. Whatever needed doing round the farm, I'd do it. Being the eldest son, it's tough.
There are 3 types of games I'm a sucker for. First-person games, particularly shooters, RPGs, and survival crafting games. Medieval Dynasty checks all of those boxes minus being a shooter. Released on PC September 17th of this year, which is 2020, by developer Render Cube, it was released as an early access game described as a unique mix of life simulation, survival, and strategy build-up game, and has received very positive reviews on Steam. So after playing the game for a few hours, what do I think? Well, I'm glad you asked. I think Medieval Dynasty is currently and will be the best survival game out there if Render Cube, the developer, continues to do what they're doing and improve the game. And even despite being an early access game, the game is actually fairly polished and it looks beautiful. So much so that people are comparing it to Kingdom Come, although that's probably due to the setting of the game. There are quite a few bugs as you would expect for an early access game, however, compared to most early access games, it does play fairly well when it comes to performance, and altogether the game is just a lot of fun. As to why I think this is and will be the best survival game out there, it's quite simple. It's not just a sandbox game. Medieval Dynasty does a fantastic job setting itself apart from other survival games by being a combination of several genres. It's technically survival, RPG, simulation, adventure, city management, crafting, and so on. Instead of just mindlessly building like you would in most games, there's a story. You start as the heir of a wealthy nobleman, and after escaping the devastating wartime of the Middle Ages, you set out to build up your very own community. Not only can you build your own home, you can also build various structures such as fields for crops, barns to store animals and produce, a smithy for building equipment, woodsheds for gathering wood, taverns for food and drinks, and more. The building is actually done pretty well. It's not like in other games where you can pick each individual part of the house, but rather they are predetermined layouts where you just kind of pick where you want the building and then bring the resources and finish the building, which I do enjoy, but I prefer the conventional method of fully customizable homes and buildings. You do have some control of how they look, particularly with homes, where you can change the walls and roof to one of 3 styles, but otherwise it comes down to what tier the building is, and that determines the cost and what type of resource you need. You can also upgrade or downgrade your home, granted you purchase the skill, and eventually you will also need to repair your home, which I can greatly appreciate. Also, you can actually seek out people looking for permanent homes and recruit them to your village, and assign them to various tasks. So if you need more food, you can find someone who is good at hunting or gathering and assign them as, well, a hunter or gatherer. Or you can find someone to run the farm, or perhaps a tavern. If you want someone to gather wood so you don't have to, well, you can easily assign them to gather wood and just retrieve it from storage when you need it. Yeah, like I said, it's a first-person city building game to some extent. You also have your own set of skills, which is where the RPG elements come in. And it kind of works in 2 categories. You have your skills, which, like in most RPGs, is how you increase certain aspects of your character. And you have technology, which is how you unlock new schematics and buildings. And the game does it in the best way, at least in my opinion. How it works is, as you do certain tasks, you level up individual skills and increase points in technology. So, as you cut down trees, or mine rocks, or hunt animals, or complete quests, etc., you earn points, and those points will eventually hit a certain number, in which case you will level up in that category, and you get to spend those points to level up, kind of like in RuneScape or Skyrim. As far as skills go, there are currently 6 skill categories, each with their own skill trees. You have extraction, which is built by cutting trees or mining, hunting, which is increased by, you guessed it, hunting, as well as archery in general and animal skinning, diplomacy, which determines how good you are in terms of recruiting villagers and bartering and conversations in general, survival, which is based on stuff like hunger, thirst, gathering, fishing, and your typical survival stats, and finally crafting, which is increased by, yes, crafting, blacksmithing, cooking, and sewing. And like I said, each category has their own skill tree, so it's quite in depth for such an early access game. And as you're building these stats, you're also pouring points into technology. Technology is split into 4 categories: building, survival, farming, and crafting, each corresponding with the skills of the same name. Again, each category has several tiers, each with their own schematics you can unlock and purchase with money. You also have quests to do and side quests to keep you occupied, which I greatly appreciate. Time and time again, I found myself becoming bored with survival games because there's nothing to do. You basically just get caught up in the building with nothing to look forward to, nothing to accomplish, and as much as I appreciate games like The Forest and Subnautica, and while they did have quests, having quests as well as side quests from different NPCs and whatnot whatnot, and skills and a tech tree and city building aspects like you do in Medieval Dynasty. It just offers more long-term entertainment, which in turn keeps the player engaged. And while the side quests are kind of simple and in some cases even a bit unpolished due to lack of voice acting and bugs and, you know, the typical early access stuff, it's still promising considering just how early in development this game is. You can also get a wife, which provide their own benefits like healing and resetting your skill points. At the moment, getting a wife is very basic and kind of silly, similar to how you'd recruit villagers, which basically you have a dialogue action that you can pick and allows you to flirt, and then you get one of two choices which are apparently random, and you need to pick the option that will raise your affection slightly. I don't know exactly how this works because some women like you saying certain things but not others, and then there's no real indication as to what they like to hear. I guess the devs were trying to make this as realistic as possible or something. Same thing with villagers. It would be nice to have some sort of indication, but as of right now it does work, and it will be interesting to see what's to come. As far as villagers go, you do have to prepare them and provide for them by making sure they have the proper jobs to satisfy your village needs, as well as keep them happy and well fed. Basically, as long as there's always food in the food storage, they should typically be pretty happy. At least that's what it seems like where I am in the game. Now, provided you are following the quests and recruiting villagers and building your village, you will accrue Dynasty Points, which determine your status and how many buildings you can have in your village. However, the bigger your village, the more buildings and fields you have, the more taxes you will have to pay. If you fail to pay your taxes, you will eventually owe a debt, and if you can't pay the debt by the following spring, your journey will end. Personally, I haven't had a problem with taxes, although I still have a long way to go. Finally, there are 4 seasons, each of which lasts 3 in-game days. During each season, certain aspects change, one of course being the temperature, others being the availability of certain foods. For example, berries are unripe and can cause sickness in the spring, but are ripe in the summer, and I believe they're unavailable otherwise. Mushrooms are only edible in fall, I believe, and crops can only be grown during certain parts of the year, much like in other games and real life. Medieval Dynasty really is unlike any other survival game out there at the moment. It's practically an open world RPG with survival elements in building and crafting. Granted, there is still a lot of work needed, especially when it comes to sound and sound effects in my opinion. While I understand things like the lack of NPC voice acting, I did have to turn off music because I felt it didn't really fit. There was always combat music playing for some reason, and in turning off the music, I noticed there's not really many well-needed sound effects, and it kind of ruins the immersion. Most notably would be the trees falling. It's kind of weird to watch a tree fall without any sound. I also feel like the wolves could use a bit of work in terms of sound effects. When they howl, it sounds like a recording and not like a wolf is actually right in front of you. It's not a big deal, especially this early in the game development, but still. The game could also use some more customizable features such as season length, day length, or at least some fine tuning, map markers, and key rebinding, which as far as key rebindings go, the developers have confirmed it is being worked on and will be implemented. The graphics options are nice. You have view distance, anti-aliasing, shadows, textures, effects, foliage, and post-processing, you know, that kind of stuff. However, it'd be nice to have more in-depth options such as a resolution modifier, ambient occlusion, and a field of view slider. Stuff like that. I'd also appreciate in-game a wish list of sorts, or a requirements list, kind of like in the forest where if you lay a blueprint down, a list of required items will show on the edge of the screen. Also, the game could use quite a bit of rebalancing. You don't start with very much, so it can be a challenge to get on your feet, but I mean, it is a survival game after all. And aside from that, what you get from crafting items sometimes isn't worth the cost of materials. Same goes for stamina. I feel like using a bow and arrow drains your stamina far too quickly, and even some other things. It's just... At the moment, NPCs do feel robotic, but there's no doubt the developers will eventually get them to feel more human. Like I said, this is an early access game, and despite that, it is rather fantastic. And the developers are actively engaging with the community, constantly putting out bug fixes and feedback, which is definitely a great sign. I hope the dev team remains faithful to the development process and just develop the game into what could be the greatest survival game to date. Now, the developer does have a roadmap in which they state they're looking to add events, challenges, horses, fishing, riding, and farming by the end of 2020, and pottery, barkeeping, alcohol production, and bandits in the first quarter of 2021, which I am very excited, especially for riding and bandits, because, well, first of all, it does take a lot of time to run around everywhere, but also because bandits will add a whole new feeling to the game. I can't wait, and hopefully they will add stuff like raids and maybe captures or something, and even if they don't, the bandits will really make the game so much more interesting. So yeah, despite the game being early access and despite the market being overflooded with early access survival games, I can absolutely recommend this game in its current state and its current price, provided you're willing to trust the developer to continue supporting the game until it's finally ready to leave early access. Even as it is, I personally think the game is worth the money, and I've already gotten over 40 hours and counting into the game, and judging by the reviews of others, it's just a fantastic game. But that'll be it for me from now. However, I am considering posting more about the game as further updates continue. If you would like to see more, or if you like this video, it would help tremendously if you could leave a like and a comment, some feedback, and if you didn't like the video, please let me know why, as I'm always looking to improve. Thanks for watching, and peace. You got something. Can I get your number, make loving? The way she dancing make my heart go whoa. The way she glancing make me lose control.